song called Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, men have named you. You're so different with a different smile. Is it only because you're lonely, men have named you, or that Mona Lisa's tenderness? It just goes on and on and on. So having said that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our vice chairman, who will run the meeting from here on out and wrestle with that question. How do you get that song out of your mind? And by the way, there are a lot of people who would say, well, where can I pick it up? Richard, I know you would love to do this. Nat King Cole recorded that song in 1955 on the Capitol label and sold 3 million copies and made Capitol a major company in the recording business. And here I am all these years later, and I still can't get it out of my mind. Now, having said that, I'll turn this meeting over to Don Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can say that particular song is out of my head already. I'm okay.
Is that another song? Yeah,
okay. Anyway, thank you and welcome. We're actually briefing for the regular June the 2nd, 2022 meeting. And at the end we have one discussion item today. We will actually have we will go over briefly the introduction of the budget, and we'll have a major, next Thursday, we'll spend 3 or 4 hours on it in the morning. But in any case, we will get a little introduction to our book that we will take home a little bit later. So with that said, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our county manager, Billy Watts.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman, and good afternoon, board members, staff, and guests. We do have the responsibility to review the items kind of in depth that will be in front of you next Thursday at the formal meeting. And so I'll go ahead and dive into the agenda. We've got one special resolution. You got a resolution recognizing June 15th, 2022 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Forsyth County, North Carolina. You'll read that item and then act on it. And Rick Hall will be here from DSS to accept that. You've got approval of the minutes for the meeting of May 19th, 2022. They will be out
tomorrow.
So you'll get those in an email. Item 3 starts the budget and finance items. You've got an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget ordinance that appropriates revenue from Juvenile Crime Prevention Council grantees to reimburse unspent funds from fiscal year 2021 to North Carolina Department of Public Safety. Kyle will review that, and Chantel can provide any kind of background information.
Sure. So, good afternoon, Commissioners. So this item is an amendment to the FY22 budget ordinance to appropriate revenue that JCPC grantees have reimbursed the county for unspent funds from FY21, so last fiscal year. And so in total, the county received $29,743 back from 4 organizations, and they need to be sent back to the state, so we are appropriating these funds back in. My understanding is the primary cause of the refunds was really the impact of COVID on programming, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Chantel, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I will add is this particular reversion definitely is in regards to COVID and some of the challenges with, the programming for in-person services. But the council has worked really hard this year and moving forward to have better processes in place to try to reallocate every single dollar. It is sometimes hard because at the end, an organization may say they need all of the funds and then it comes down to June 30 and they may not. But we are trying to closely monitor on a month-to-month basis to do a better job with ensuring no reversions occur.
Okay. All right, very good. Agenda item 4 is a resolution authorizing the closing of the capital reserve fund and transferring debt leveling reserves to the general fund. You've got an associated amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget orders to transfer debt leveling plan reserves to the general fund. I'll preface it a little bit. Lead Plunkett is going to review it, but as you remember, we went through a lot of deliberation around creating the debt service fund so that it would be crystal clear the way the dollars are set aside, especially for debt leveling. I think the fear is that we would lose sort of that institutional tracking of debt leveling because it is a sinking fund. And so, and as such, when you need the dollars, they have to be there because much as we're going into next year, we're going to issue over $100 million worth of debt and with no tax increase because those dollars are there in the reserve fund to pay those sort of peak years of debt service. And so as we've been working through ERP, we're learning more about how that's going to be tracked in the new financial system. And Lee and Terry both came to me, and I think they are in agreement, and twisted my arm, actually, but they are in agreement, and I want to honor that it can be managed better in the general fund. Will take some complexity out of the budget. And so we are heading in that direction, Lee.
Yeah, you hit on almost all the benefits. I will say just a couple more added benefits for us is when we created this capital reserve fund for some it was to separate them from the debt service fund because of some tax restrictions, and so we would not be able to yield as much earnings if we kept in the debt service fund. And so on the recommendation of bond counsel, we set it aside in its own account, and that account is a market-based account, but it just doesn't earn quite as much as it does as our pooled investments. And so if we move this over into our general fund, it's going to be a sub-fund of the general fund entitled Debt Leveling Plans, and it will be able to be pooled with all of our total county portfolio and earn a little bit extra in earnings. And in my view, based off what Dudley said, in Oracle, our accounting for it will be much easier and I think even clearer. The way we can pull reporting on the debt leveling plans at any time will be much better. And then also, just to reiterate, it does not change the debt leveling plans at all. There is still committed fund balance. You'll still see it in the same way when I present it every year, and you'll see it. It'll be the exact same way. It doesn't change any of that. We also ran it by our bond counsel, and they were fine with the move and transferring the assets. And so the additional piece of this would be a budget ordinance amendment to allow us to transfer the balances of the capital reserve fund, which is essentially all of our debt leveling plan reserves, to the general fund as of June 30th. Would I answer any questions?
I do. Well, I'm kind of like Dudley. He said you all had to twist his arm, and I understand that. It's just my fear that future boards may not realize completely how important this debt leveling is and how it keeps us from raising taxes on debt oftentimes. But I hope that you're right, that it'll be kind of separated. I'm not worried about this board, but I worry about future boards that may try to change it and not realize the importance of it.
Understood.
Yeah, my understanding, well, there's the part of the ERP actually has a tool built in that is sort of implicit in the software that right now that Lee has to do a lot of that analysis kind of in an Excel world outside of it. And so I will say that the person in front of you right there is the person who tracks all of these debt leveling plans year over year, and he's going to make sure that all that is so well documented, so somebody else can kind of pick that up and go with it as time goes on. But the other thing, I think when we went to the debt service fund, we learned we had the yield restriction on it, and so we had to create this capital reserve fund, which just made it more complex than it really needed to be. And so anyway, and I think the ERP has much better reporting and structural capabilities inside that system, which we didn't have before. So I'm good. I think it'll be, and if it doesn't work, we can pivot too. So, but I feel good where we are. But I will say that I'm handed, we've talked about over the last couple of weeks as I've been preparing the budget to give to you today. The budget that I give to you today is about $10 million more than the last number you saw. And that is a function of the debt service changes that you're going to approve or you may approve next Monday. When we integrated them into the recommended budget, because there's some revenues that were staying in the debt service fund, now they're back in the general fund, that it changed the bottom line of the budget. But all of that is attributed to the debt service, to this change. So anyway, it's. I think
I have one question for you, Lee, somewhat related to Commissioner Whisenant's question there. We're going to move $40 million from capital reserve into general funds. Is that the basic formula?
That's a conservative estimate.
Okay.
Based off my models, it's going to be hopefully closer to 38 million at the end of the year. That will be set aside for debt leveling, or for debt service because of the debt leveling plans.
Okay.
Yep.
So in year 2023, we can look at the general fund and find that same $40 million or more?
Or more. Depends on how, we have to look at how much we utilize next year, but yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We'll be able to see it very clearly. And so anytime you need a report, we can pull it and show you the exact balances.
I can't wait to see what happens, because I don't know if you knew it or not, Lee, but that man used to be a New York banker.
Much smarter than I am.
Mr. Kaplan says it's not, New York bankers aren't held in high regard, but he
In
is.
some circles, it is. Okay.
All right, thank you, Lee. Appreciate all your work on ERP and this entire issue. So, all right, I have a couple of grant matters. They're actually both airport matters. We've got item 5, a resolution authorizing execution of a grant agreement between Forsyth County and the North Carolina Department of Transportation to fund the Aviation Career Education Academy. It's not Mark Davidson, it's Christopher Ong. So it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, members of the board. No, I am sitting in for Mr. Davidson this afternoon. He is in I think an inspection at the airport right now.
It actually just occurred to me, the FAA is doing their routine inspection today, and he is where he needs to be. So, and Christopher handles the budget side of this anyway, so.
Okay, so the Aviation Career Education, or ACE Academy, essentially provides unique summer aviation education programs for elementary, middle, and high school students who are interested in aviation and aerospace. The program provides students with a wide range of aviation career exploration experiences and also focuses on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Smith Reynolds Airport, along with 4 other airports out of the 72 public use airports in the state, was recently awarded a grant under the ACE Academy grant program. These funds must be used to cover the direct cost of the ACE Academies, such as supplies and vendor costs, and they may not be used for administrative or staffing costs. Grantees are required to submit a post-academy synopsis to comply with reporting requirements. For the past 11 years, Smith Reynolds has been partnering with Jim Shaw's ACE Academy. The scheduled camps for this summer are June 13th through 17th for middle school and June 20th through 24th for high school. And both of the camps will be hosted at the new Maisie S. Woodruff Aviation Technology Lab. Past ACE Academies have produced or have purchased such items as flight simulators, field trip tickets, aircraft rides, model rocket kits, and safety materials. So essentially, this request is to authorize execution of the grant agreement between the county and the North Carolina Department of Transportation Fund the Academy.
You know, one of the things I was impressed with that presentation is when you called it Jim Shaw's ACE Academy. He was one of those people who really believed in the program you're talking about. So that shouldn't be too hard for me to understand. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ask a quick question. How the money is coming from the Department of Transportation to the airport. The airport is contracting still with the Jim Shaw Academy. I mean, where's the money actually going, and are there other monies intermingled into that? I'm kind of just curious about who is running the camp.
Yeah, I think ours
It's
is,
not the airport running the camp.
that's correct. I think it's really, this is just pass through to the academy. And so they were operating it for a time under SciWorks.
Yes. they were.
Insurance came up.
Yeah, so
The insurance, so the airport does not have all.
So what is the name of the nonprofit that is doing, and who is now operating? Do we know that piece?
So I think
I think it's his son. Yeah.
Still call it Jim Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think ultimately they needed this county to be the grantee for this particular grant. I'll get you exactly that.
DOT does this through airports, and they have some direct, they used to do the ACE Academy programs in several places in the state, DOT. I just stopped that program when there were funds in several airports. I think Asheville's got one now, and some others do it. But because of insurance, they had to create their own 501(c)(3)s and had to handle all the insurance. This says, according to this grant, you can't give it for administrative.
That's correct.
What they were doing.
I was looking online last night to try and get some information, so I would appear to know what I was speaking of for the most part. And there's actually a map that shows all the locations of the ACE academies, as well as a kind of a synopsis of the guidelines of the grant.
We'll get you.
Yeah, I won't ask you more today, but I would like to know a little bit more about sort of the budget for that camp and how all that is working, and how many private funds are in that, and kind of what is the sort of financial situation on that?
Okay. Yep.
And do they do anything else but this camp?
Yeah, they do something to raise money, they have a golf tournament.
Yeah, I know they used to raise money. I'm just kind of curious what their total budget is for the camp. And I'm kind of curious, is this the only thing they do? I'm just a little curious about the dollars.
I do not know what happened after Jim Shaw's passing, but I don't know what his son's it was just for the camp, and they did nothing else, except during the year, they would interview kids who wanted to be on the program.
Right.
So that's the only thing that did.
Okay, thank you.
I can only add 2 cents to that, very quick 2 cents. Mr. Shaw would have fundraisers at his home sometime for this purpose as well, and I've gone to a few of those. And this is not directed to you, but to Mark specifically. I made a promise to Mr. Shaw when he was on his sick bed that we would name something at that airport after him in some respect. So hopefully the airport commission can come up with some way of doing that to honor him for the work that he did up there for years. It's important, in my humble opinion, since we just reviewed a policy. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The next item also, Christopher will review. It's a resolution authorizing execution of a grant agreement between Forsyth County and the North Carolina Department of Transportation to fund rehabilitation of runway 1533 at Smith Reynolds Airport. Christopher.
So 1533 is the primary runway at the airport and is in need of rehabilitation. The DOT Division of Aviation has allocated funds for the project. Contracts let for construction and construction phase services. This grant provides state aid in amount of $6,459,377 at a rate of up to 90% of the final project cost. Staff recommends execution of the grant as well as the authorization for the county manager to execute any further amendments of this grant in an amount not to exceed $340,305 to fund any necessary change orders. And this also does not need a budget amendment. That's already been set up as in the 2018 Smith Reynolds Airport CPO as the 1533 rehab project.
All right. And it closes, the runway actually closes here shortly. So, so we'll be underway. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
All right. The next 3 items relate to ARPA funding. And they relate to the board that has already approved the agreements for most of those ARPA projects, but these were the ones that had kind of capital consideration. So Kyle's going to come up and review, and I'll just kind of quickly, I'll actually introduce all of them. You've got a resolution approving the execution of the agreement with Senior Services Incorporated, and that constructs the Intergenerational Center for Arts and Wellness with American Rescue Plan Act funds. Number 8 is the Family Services Incorporated Child Development Center at the Commons, and then the last one is the county's project on the behavioral health campus for the behavioral health project there.
That's right. So, as you'll remember, at the February 17th meeting, the commissioners approved projects that were requesting capital project funding to move forward in the ARPA process. And there was some additional information on requests that involved capital projects that required additional information and additional written justifications. And that has been submitted by Senior Services, Family Services, and for the county project. And so our ARPA administrator is recommending these projects be formally approved by the board. And then at that meeting, while the projects were approved to move forward, we didn't move those funds out of a budget reserve. And so this item will also transfer the funds out of the budget reserve into a spendable line item for these 3 projects.
And I am real pleased to say, and I thank Gordon Watkins for it, we've gotten through all the administrative and grant agreement and kind of conditions that, so those dollars we are poised to start getting those dollars on the street now. And so that has been a grueling process, but we've gotten through it.
Might I say that that's congratulations to Gordon, because the conference that I just attended, I can tell you, not many counties are in as good a shape as we are. Counties are struggling to meet the deadlines and to do the paperwork and whatnot. So thank you so much, Gordon.
If I could take 30 seconds and go in another congratulations from me. When I was in Memphis, Tennessee at the conference, they were amazed that Forsyth County had an agreement, even on how to spend the money in principle. So I had people calling me from Mississippi, Alabama. How did y'all do that? You know, so I said, Forsyth County is unique. We get along with each other most of the time. But they really commended what we were doing in terms of our ARPA, allocations and what we're doing to try to really enhance the community. So thank you very much, Gordon, for your insight on that and your work, because there's a lot of work involved in that.
Well, I appreciate that, but that's a little much. I'll have to really thank the group we have working together. It has been a big chore, but Lee has been a huge help, and Kim Shore, who joined us recently, has been wonderful, and of course Aisha and other folks. So I really appreciate the team we've put together.
All right. Very good. All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, item 10 is the second reading on an ordinance amending fuel surcharge rate chart and specifying rates for the franchise residential and small business solid waste collection, transportation, and disposal services. That is a second reading, so we don't need minor to review that, but y'all took action on that in the last cycle, and it does require two readings. Items 11 and 12 are James Anderson, so I'm going to invite him up. They both deal with projects that we've got underway. Item 11 is a resolution authorizing execution of an amendment to the agreement with Barr Construction Company, Incorporated, to provide additional design phase services for the Blues Lake project. And item 12 is a resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to the agreement with Frank L. Bloom Construction for the Clydean project, which is starting to see some progress downtown. So turn it over to James on both of those.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you authorizes the execution of amendment to the contract with Barr Construction Company as the design builder for the Blues Lake Park project. Forsyth County has received additional funding for the project and $3 million from SCIF funding from the state and $500,000 as a PARTIF grant. And staff have negotiated additional services with Barr for the design phase of $245,000. This represents approximately 7% of the additional budgeted funds. And total design phase services are not to exceed $383,835. This represents roughly 6.7% of the total project budget. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
There aren't any I guess there's a restroom building. What buildings are on that site?
So the concept plans and are being worked out right now as far as how much can we get with our funding that we have now. Plan from Barr is that mid-June we'll have a schematic deliverable that kind of delineates, how much we can get with our initial funding. There are some elements around the PARTIF that have to be done in this first phase, and so we're working with them to prioritize that and other elements on the site. But just generally some goals that are there for that first phase would be some restroom facilities, some shelter facilities, and potentially some fishing docks if we can get those in.
And some maintenance facilities.
What's the last thing you said, James? I'm sorry.
And a maintenance facility.
And the road design and so forth, all that structure's in there. So all the site work, the elevation work, the road design. Does he do the road work too?
Correct, yep.
So he does that, and he's probably subcontract some of that out to do that?
So it'll be done just like our other design build projects. They'll finish the design and then they'll competitively bid their subcontracts.
Yeah, for the work.
For the work,
Yeah,
correct.
I got that, but he's designing the whole thing, responsible for the whole thing. That's
Correct,
okay.
yep.
I
And
got
they're
it.
also doing some master planning so that we know where we're going in the future with it as well.
Okay.
In case there's an RV park at it. Just saying, you never know.
You never know.
That's right. All right, you want to do item 12?
All right. This item is a resolution authorizing execution of amendment to the contract with Frank L. Bloom for the Caladium project to restore project elements that were value engineered from the budget. There are approximately 17 items that Caladium has requested be restored to the project. These include operable partitions, duct liner, a double metal stud wall framing system, and mass ceilings around the STEM theater. These items will enhance the visitor experience and improve acoustics around the STEM theater and within the exhibit spaces. The total of these items is roughly $670,795, with $330,000 being previously appropriated by the board. And the balance of that is $340,795, which Caladium has transferred to the county. This will increase the guaranteed maximum price to $27,858,824.
And 10 cents.
Any questions?
Do you have any idea what the completion date is on it?
So we're looking at probably about another 18 months out.
18 months from now. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, item 13 is a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor and collector in amount of $18,887.71 from the North Carolina Vehicle Tax System refunds. And that is it for the agenda for next Thursday. So the only other item I have are just a few comments, just to formally introduce the budget. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, you want me to go ahead, or do we need to wait on anything?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've been in a session a long time today, and so I was sort of given instructions to keep this brief, and so I will, and I'll actually do it from here instead of going down front as I have done in the past. So you have a significantly large document in front of you that really is the county manager's recommended budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st of 2022 and ending June 30th of 2023. The structure of the budget is really the same as you've seen in the other years. We've not really changed anything around how we've prepared the continuation budget, the alternate service level budgets, the policies in place around fund balance and debt leveling, and all those are the same. So I actually did not go into as much detail in my manager's message this year as I had done in the past. When you read the manager's message, what you'll see that we really did is I really wanted to talk about the budget environment that we are in, because it is so strange. When you look back, really the last normal budget that we have had, and when I mean normal, I mean you're budgeting in an environment where you're fairly sure of the kind of the revenues and where you are in the current year you're in, and where the projection over the next 12 months really isn't clouded by anything that's clearly on the horizon. And so, as we got into 2021, the entire world changed around COVID. 2022, we were still in COVID. You had a lot of influx of other federal money. There were impacts from all that on the economy. And so going into FY23, where we find ourselves just in a really strange environment that is much more challenging. And so in the manager's message, I really talk about those challenges a bit. And so, the first one is inflation. Inflation's at a 40-year high. If you look at what sectors of the economy that it affects, it's pervasive across all of those. And where that's going, what's happening with federal monetary policy, efforts to increase the interest rates, are all things that we are going to deal with. We're dealing with now. Going into next year, we know they're going to have impacts in the budget. And so you're in this complex inflation environment. The other one, which we've been dealing with, if you think about it over the last year, we've been bringing to you problems that we're having really around supply chain issues, which are also impacted by inflation. We first saw them when we were in the middle of the pandemic, where we weren't able to get hand sanitizer. All of those systems, PPE and all that was very difficult to find. And so we've got supply chain disruptions that we've seen in trying to acquire replacement vehicles, particularly in the public safety fleet. You're seeing them in construction. And, James and I were talking a little bit about it. When you think about it, when you're not able to get a key component in construction in a construction time frame, it creates challenges with the entire rest of the project. And so I got to say, James Anderson and our staff, they have done a magnificent job of working with contractors, because we've not brought project delays to you. And so but the cost pressures on top of them, all of that has been something that really was, as we've been putting this budget together, those were, you're in a room talking about what your fleet needs are and what we need to buy for fleet vehicles, and you don't know when you can get fleet vehicles. And so you have kind of all of that happening. Labor market considerations have been challenging. The board's been dealing with those as we've tried to talk through premium pay. Took really an unprecedented step to increase a mid-year adjustment, just kind of move salaries across the board. And I think it worked. I mean, if you look in the rearview mirror and say, had we not done that, where would we be, given what we know we've got? We've been able to hold our own with vacancies, but we really haven't been able to make significant improvements. We've still got over 70 vacancies in the detention center. That is a problem. It's one we've got to work through. We had many vacancies in the EMT paramedic world. We took kind of an unprecedented step where we went out and hired uncertified people. We brought in a class of 16 people who were not certified EMTs. They're about halfway through the program right now. Knock on wood, I don't think we've lost any of them. The upshot of that was we probably got the most diverse EMT class we've ever had. There's more people of color in that class than we've ever had, and so there's real opportunities to sort of change the trajectory on some things. But it's taken sort of unprecedented kind of creative, innovative things to really move the needle in some of those areas. But clearly the labor market is in a strange place. There's a chart that I included in there that really shows what we all knew. The labor market participation rate has actually been going down for about 20 years. It took a steep drop in the middle of the pandemic, and it hadn't recovered yet from that. And so there's a little sense of why we are in the place that we're in, but you add a whole new set of challenges for employers around the fact that working from home is pretty commonplace. And so you've got people who are actually making decisions about, the job I want is to work from home. And so as an employer, we're having to sort of struggle through all that. You add all that together, and everything you read says that a recession's on the way. And so how you factor that into, maybe that resolves some of the labor market considerations. Maybe that resolves some of your other things. But at that point, you're going to be in a recession, and everybody's going to be struggling through that. And so, really, we enter this budget year with sort of this. We're getting used to uncertainty, so I don't want to say unprecedented uncertainty, but it's a very different uncertainty around lots of parts of the economy that can kind of go one way or the other. And so when staff and departments and Kyle and I were working through this, this is one of those budgets where I could justify a tax increase. I could probably justify a tax decrease because we're coming off some of the best revenue increases we've ever had.
Which is it, up or down?
Well, and so There is no tax, thank you, there is no tax increase in this budget. And that's kind of where we landed because we're just at this place of uncertainty. If revenues continue the way they are and we don't fall into a recession, the labor market gets itself squared away, supply chain issues get straight, then somebody's going to look back and say Dudley should have recommended a tax decrease in this budget. There's no doubt. I mean, that will happen. If things kind of stay the way they are and we stay in this sort of period of flux, don't fall into a recession and we sort of muddle through, then we'll have another pretty good year the way we are. If things go south, we will still be financially, we'll be okay, is kind of where we are. If things, so that's what I present to you, is a budget with no tax increase recommended against a backdrop of great revenues. And it's really structured around over the next year, there will be points where the board's making decisions kind of in the environment we're in that are really, really important decisions. And those are going to be, the first one we're going to get is probably going to be in July, where we're going to get the Lockton study back, which we've hired an outside consulting firm to look at our pay schedule to really try to help us make sure that we are competitive in some key areas that are just experiencing kind of unprecedented competition and demands. You see counties across the state moving salaries significantly in certain areas to try to backfill positions where they're having a hard time to fill positions. And so some of the information we're going to get back from them is, okay, what's really happening in that marketplace? Where do we need to, how do we need to do that? So there's $5.9 million that is in an account that the board will have to take action to figure out how to address that. You know, our compensation program that we've got in has our normal performance-based adjustments in it. It's a great year in terms of health benefits. Our staff is pretty healthy. We have a 1% increase in the benefits piece of it. There's an increase on the state retirement match that Chantel, Shannon, and Kyle can talk about next Thursday. So it's kind of a normal year with compensation. I do want to thank you for the second installment of the premium pay. We pushed one off until September. And so, you know, that has been some, you know, incentive and some you know, assistance in helping keep folks, you know, because they know they're going to get another premium pay here in September. And at about the same time, you know, the Lockton study results should be clear, and hopefully we're in a really, really good position there. So you'll have that coming into the fall. You'll have the PAYGO decision, because we know, because revenues have been good, we've not moved to try to spend that money mid-year, and we don't know exactly where the year is going to end. But you know, even if sales taxes drop off, I think so we're in May, so we've got March sales taxes. We only know February right now. We got March, April, May, June still to get. Even if they drop off, as long as they don't drop off precipitously, we'll still be okay on the sales tax side. And so, and the property tax has moved. Good, strong year in property tax growth from new construction and you know, the other personal property and the state certified property. So all of that, we know there will be some dollars there for PAYGO. I think it's important that we put together good value projects that sort of meet that PAYGO definition of, you know, of operational kind of things that can save money, debt avoidance, or economic development. And so there'll be a good, strong conversation there. The ARPA funds that you've got that you know you'll be making decisions on in the fall are going to be part and parcel of that. And while they won't have direct impacts in the current budget, they very well could have some indirect impacts and, you know, and affect us financially, hopefully in a positive ways as we move forward. And so, you know, this budget really, from a philosophical approach, has been one where we had to figure out where we were going to position ourselves, and because it is one of those years where, depending upon how you characterize where you think you are you could have anything from a tax reduction to a tax increase and justify either one of those. So budget's balanced. It is a $531 million budget, so we're over that $500 million mark. The increase is $31 million. Again, about 10 of it was what we did at the very last minute related to the way that we handled debt service, but it didn't change anything else. Tax rate 67.78 cents. And again, 11.5 cents of that is actually dedicated to paying debt service through the debt leveling plans that we talked about. If you look at our Reliance property tax and sales tax comprise 3/4 of the total general fund revenue, and so we are very dependent on those two revenue sources. Commissioner Linville always wants to know the property penny tax equivalent. That is $4,352,000. That's up from $4,227,000. So again, good growth year. Fund balance we appropriated based on our normal formula of what we think we're going to revert. Obviously, if we don't get positions filled, that's going to be affected by that. But that fund balance is $14,597,000. And then again, there'll be no surprise when you look down the list of where the new dollars in this budget go to. It is the schools, it is the sheriff, and it kind of follows that same trend. So, with that, I submit to you the county manager's recommended budget for the fiscal year 2022, 2023, and I really would just want to thank a fantastic team. Budget management does a great job. Kyle provides great leadership there. He does that knowing he hires really young, smart people, and occasionally they leave us. And and we understand that, and we want them to grow in careers and everything. We tell them they can't leave us till they get the budget done that year. As y'all know and love Janice, and she did leave us, but she did get her work done before she left, so we appreciate that. You'll see some new budget staff members coming on board because we try to get them in as early as we can, so we can get them really up to speed by the time we get into the budget process. And but beyond that, just a great management team: Chantel, Damon, Gordon, Terry, Lee, Chris. And there's I'm inevitably going to leave somebody out. So, but just a great team across all the departments and great cooperation.
From a personal point of view, I'm not only impressed with what you just said, but I'm comfortable. I mean, I'm looking forward to the rest of this year, and I don't see any serious roadblocks unless we, as a country, have a depression or anything like that, and that's nowhere near, I don't think, on the horizon. Right, Ted?
With you.
I think so.
Just hope the recession doesn't.
Right. Don't want a recession.
Yeah, so moving forward, so we will be in here, we'll actually be on the 4th floor on Thursday, diving into this in excruciating detail. We'll go from there to public hearing, which will be that next Monday at 2. And then we'll be back in here that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for deliberations, as we
Which
always
next
have.
Monday? This coming Monday or a week from this coming Monday?
So you will be on, it'll be Memorial Day this Monday. So next Thursday, we will be back in here, we'll be back on the 4th floor at 9 o'clock, so.
And then a week from Monday, 2
public hearing.
o'clock, we're back in here. Okay.
Yep. So thank you.
Dudley, if I could, just thank you all for your help, but also just want to make sure everybody knows we'll have copies of this posted online on the website, and there'll also be copies at the library branches of probably by tomorrow. So anyways, if the public is interested in looking at it, they can either go on the website or they can go to the library. And or they can come here. We've got them here.
Do you know when the PDF's going to hit the website?
I would think probably either later this afternoon or by tomorrow at the latest.
Okay, very good. All right.
Is that it?
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just doing a little scanning. A lot of work goes into that, and I want to thank you. So 9 o'clock on next Thursday morning? Yep, good.
A week from
4th floor? Great. Hope
Davis.
everyone has a great Memorial Day holiday, and hope we can also keep all the families in Uvalde, Texas in our prayers. Man, what
That's what I was gonna
been a
say.
week of tragedy on that.
Just to help my mind, we keep saying next Monday, or a week from Monday. What's the date?
Next Thursday.
Next June 2nd, we're getting together on Thursday at 9 a.m.
I'm talking about Monday,
Monday, we're off on Memorial Day holiday.
right? And
So
then a
we're
week from Monday,
Week from Monday. which
That's
is
what I want. Okay.
June the 6th, 2 p.m., budget hearing in this room.
got it.
Commissioners, you also have a sheet on your desk that has all of the dates for June.
Yes, we
Oh,
do.
good.
Yes, we do.
And large
All right, esteemed clerk, man.
It's good.
Well,
Second.
Mr. Kaplan has moved we adjourn.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Elamine and by the Vice Chairman Don Martin. We're adjourned.
Right.